this. All right. Assalamu alaikum. Greetings and salutations of peace be upon you all. I welcome you all to the Islamic School League of America, Islamic Schools League of America's monthly teacher webinar, where today we're focused on Islam 101. And we invite particularly our wonderful staff, our valued staff of other faith backgrounds other than Islam, or perhaps no faith background, to join us in this space to learn more about Islam and Muslims, our beliefs and traditions, so that inshallah, you can feel more comfortable, more knowledgeable, and able to relate to your students as well, inshallah. My name is Dr. Shahada Khan. I'm the Executive Director of the Islamic Schools League of America. And joining me today as the facilitator and presenter of today's workshop is Sister Lisa Kahler, the Program Manager at the Islamic Schools League of America. So we'll jump into our presentation, where we'll start with the name of Allah, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. This is how Muslims typically begin any activity, and it means in the name of Allah, the most gracious, the most merciful. So I want to actually spend just a couple of minutes talking a little bit about ISLA, the Islamic Schools League of America, and then I'll pass the microphone over to Sister Lisa, inshallah. So the Islamic Schools League of America is a nonprofit that supports full-time Islamic schools all around the country. And as we have someone here from Canada as well, from all across North America, and increasingly even across the globe, alhamdulillah. So we're really excited to be able to network, in particular, the 300 plus full-time Islamic schools here in the United States. We estimate that they support approximately 50,000 K-12 Muslim students and about 1,000 educational professionals, amongst whom include you. Those, all of them are not of the Islamic faith. Even those who do follow Islam may have different ways in which they practice. So alhamdulillah, we are a beautiful, diverse group of individuals here to support our Muslim students and all of our students in our Islamic schools. The Islamic Schools League of America does fulfill its mission of supporting full-time Islamic schools primarily through research, resources, and relationships. We try to engage in foundational research with Islamic school educators and other constituents. We just completed a study with Islamic school alumni to understand how they, if their Islamic school cultivated a sense of belonging, for example. And it was actually this research that made us feel even more obliged to ensure that all of our staff have a sense of belonging, inshallah, at least by providing this foundational orientation to Islam. Through our research, we then develop resources such as this program, professional development, other toolkits, and always we try and engage in meaningful and develop meaningful relationships with you, other organizations, to inshallah to create synergy around our work. And I just used another Arabic word, inshallah, that I'm sure you've heard more often, and Sister Lisa will be describing and defining, inshallah, God willing, in the coming slides. So we invite you to stay connected to the ISLA. That link actually needs to be updated. So I'll put the correct link on the chat once I'm done speaking. And we invite you to stay connected so that you're aware of the programs, professional development webinars, and resources that we provide. All right, so I'm really happy and excited to introduce to you guys Sister Lisa Kahler. Sister Lisa Kahler was actually raised Roman Catholic and was introduced to Islam through her coursework in architecture at the Catholic University of America in Washington, D.C., where she was an archdiocesan scholar. Did I say that right, Lisa?
Yeah, good enough.
After transferring to the University of Redlands in California, she received a study and travel scholarship to the Middle East from the chaplain's office. MashaAllah, God had willed it so that she traveled across the world, including to occupied Palestine, and did a semester abroad in Jerusalem. She traveled to Egypt, Turkey, Syria, and studied religious architecture of Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. We're so excited to have Sister Lisa Kahler here as the presenter, given her deep understanding of the monotheistic faiths in particular, and her own understanding of what needs to be explained, inshallah, to be able to understand this faith better. And so for the past 2.5 decades, she's actually been working in Islamic schools in the administration capacities, and both public schools and private educational institutes in Southern California, and has now been working as program manager at the ISLA since the beginning of this year, or since June, I'm sorry. It's felt like a whole year, mashallah, Lisa, with the amount of progress that you've brought to our organization. So without any further ado, Lisa, I know that we have a very short amount of time. I pass the microphone over to you, and look forward to listening to your presentation. And I invite our participants to ask any questions that they have in the chat, and we'll try to get to those within the duration of this talk. And if not, we will definitely be following up with you via email. Thank you, Lisa.
And I can't see the chat, so Shahza, if you do see something, you just let me know.
I will do that for sure.
If we don't get through all of it, we will be sharing out the presentation. I was trying to throw as much stuff as I could in here, but not sure if we're going to get through all of it. So, so welcome everyone. We're going to go over the highlights today. It's not, everything you need to know about Islam. These are just the highlights of things I felt would be helpful. As a new Muslim, I started working in Islamic schools. I didn't know any of the words, any of the practices that my colleagues were doing. And I didn't feel very good normally on a normal basis. So I figured I'd try to do the best I can just to give an introduction to some of the things that you see in your school and with your parents and students that they might be saying or asking. And please, if you want to drop in the chat, if there's some words or phrases or practices that you've seen and you don't really know what in the world they're doing, if you want to put them in the chat, and I'll do my best. I'm not a scholar. Shaz is probably more knowledgeable, but I do have friends I can ask. So that's my plan. So today we're just talking about briefly the basics of Islam, 5 pillars of Islam, the Quran and Sunnah, holidays, special days for Muslims, some of the dietary restrictions, gender relations, and a few additional resources. So I just want to start with Assalamu alaikum, which means may the peace and blessings of God be upon you. You'll hear that a lot. It's a greeting between Muslims. So if you didn't quite catch what they were saying, that's really what they mean. It's very similar to shalom in Jewish faith. So it's the same actually root syllables. And then Islam, and again, that's how it is in Arabic on the image. It's a monotheistic religion. The word itself is an Arabic word, and it means surrender, submission, commitment, peace. And again, you would hear Assalamu alaikum. It has the same SLM in it, which again refers to peace. And Muslims are those that adhere to Islam. So the religion is Islam. The people are Muslims. So that's just a grammatical thing. So sometimes I've had people ask me about that. So just question, do you know any guess which countries have the highest Muslim population? You can unmute since there's just a few of us. It's not America. Okay, sorry. Okay, sorry.
Indonesia.
Okay, anybody else have a guess? Anybody else have a guess?
Pakistan.
Pakistan, anybody else? Pakistan, anybody else?
Egypt. Egypt.
Indonesia.
So we got Indonesia, Pakistan. Okay, so guess what? Egypt was the top 10, Evan. So not the top 5, but the top 10. Yeah, the top 10. Yes. So Indonesia, Pakistan, India, Bangladesh, Nigeria. I think Egypt was number 8. Those are top countries with Muslim population. If you notice, other than Egypt, they're not Arab countries. 72% of Muslims are not Arab. There are about 7 million Muslims in the United States, which is a lot, but we're a big country. There's about 1.2 billion Muslims worldwide. So just some basics of Islam. As we said, it's a monotheistic faith. We do believe in one God. God means Allah in Arabic. So it's the same word, and I'll be using Allah in this presentation. We have a lot of beliefs that are similar with Judaism and Christianity. There's one God, it's a revealed book, prophets are the same, several other key concepts. We also date our history back to Prophet Abraham, or Ibrahim in Arabic. Muhammad is the last and final prophet and messenger. Muslims say peace and blessings be upon him, or they'll write it PBUH when speaking about Prophet Muhammad or writing about him. You always say peace and blessings be upon him or write the initials. And the Quran is the holy book. Anybody know the 5 pillars of Islam? May want to. Right? So it's a picture. So the Shahada, which is the belief, or the statement, the Salah, or the prayer, Zakat, or charity or alms, Saum, or fasting, and Hajj, or pilgrimage. So we'll go over briefly each one of those. So the Shahada is a declaration of faith. It's to bear witness that there is no God but God, Allah, and Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, is a final prophet or messenger. To be a Muslim, you have to be able to believe in this statement. But no one is to be forced to say these words. It's not a forced religion. Salah, or prayer, this is kind of images. At the school, you probably have seen people do these gestures and forms. This is an illustration of what a prayer would look like. Any ideas why or how often Muslims pray? Right, so we pray 5 times a day: dawn, noon, mid-afternoon, sunset, nighttime. And the prayers are in Arabic. It's a ritual prayer in Arabic, and it's toward the direction of the Kaaba in Mecca. So any Muslims all around the world, they'd be praying in towards the same direction, but depending where you are in the world, it would be everybody's praying to Mecca, but obviously if you look at a globe, it's going to be a little bit different angle. It is a commandment from Allah to pray. It helps to refocus the heart and mind. There's other benefits, and people get different things out of it, and kind of what you put in, you get out of it. Some people, it helps calm them down. There's many things. You talk to every Muslim, they'll give you a little bit different answer. Some of the Muslims on here, if you wanted to say perhaps what you get out of your prayer when you're praying. Anyone? Is zakat, or alms. It's a charitable giving. It's an amount of 2.5% of one's wealth. So similar if you go to church and you do tithing, or most religions, you have to give so much amount each year. So in Islam, it's just 2.5%, and it's only if you have a certain level of income and assets. So if you can't pay your bills, you're not required to do it. It's really, if you have a minimal amount of income and assets coming in, then you're required to give that. There's also another form of charity called sadaqah, and it can be given by anyone. It doesn't have to be monetary. A smile, a kind gesture, you help somebody cross the street. Those are all forms of sadaqah, or charity also. So Ramadan is it's one of the pillars of Islam. We'll talk in more detail. It's a big thing. This is just an image of people breaking their fast. So Ramadan is actually, the meaning of Ramadan, it's the ninth month of the Islamic lunar calendar. During this month, Muslims are to abstain from food, liquid, and sexual relations. But there are exceptions. Not everybody has to fast, or not every day. Children do not have to fast. The elderly don't have to fast. If you're sick, you don't have to fast. If you're pregnant, nursing, menstruating, you're not to fast. Also, travelers do not have to fast. So there are exceptions. There are other exceptions, but these are the kind of the biggest ones. And why do we fast in Ramadan? So these are some major reasons. It helps build empathy. It's a reminder of our blessings, especially in America and Canada. We are very blessed to where we are. So just a reminder. The Quran was also revealed in Ramadan. It's time for us to share our blessings, reflect on our faith, and kind of refocus our actions. So this is a Hajj. It's a picture of the Kaaba in Mecca. So why? Why do we do that? Anybody want to guess why Muslims go on the Hajj? So the Hajj means pilgrimage to the Kaaba in Mecca. Muslims are required to perform the Hajj once. However, it's a requirement only if you're an adult in good health and you're financially able to. Especially these days, it's really expensive. I went right before the COVID and it was around 10 grand a person. Now it's even higher. So it's not most people cannot afford it. Small percentage of people can ever afford it in their lifetime. The Kaaba itself was actually built by Prophet Ibrahim and his son Ishmael. Over time, in the later years, the residents there became polytheistic. So at the time of Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings upon him, he restored the Kaaba to its original purpose, which was the worship of God. It is the holiest site in Islam, and millions of worshippers, depending on the year, do make the Hajj every year. So millions out of the 1.2 billion. So the Quran is a holy book of Islam. It's just an image of a pretty highly decorative Quran. Muslims believe that the Quran is the final revealed book sent by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And it's a speech of Allah that was revealed again in Arabic to the Prophet over about the course of 23 years. It wasn't just like one night or one day, it was over the course of time. A little bit here, a little bit there. It was written down by scribes during the lifetime of the Prophet, and it was memorized during the time of Prophet Muhammad. So it was both memorized and written down, and it was passed on afterwards orally and through written form from generation to generation. So somebody now who they memorize it, they can actually trace back the lineage of the person they memorize it from and keep on going back over the 1,500 years to the time the person first memorized it. So there's a lineage that they can write down to that. So in the Quran, Muslims study it, we read it, we reflect. There's powerful lessons of justice, spirituality, morality, and also the stories of righteous individuals, the prophets and many other righteous individuals. Their stories are written in the Quran. Many of the prophets that you'll read about or hear about in the Torah and the Bible, they're the same prophets, just the names are in Arabic in the Quran, but it's the same prophets. You still have prophets Joseph, Yusuf, Lut, Jonah, Idris. No, all of them are there. The Quran itself is highly decorated and it's venerated as a sacred text. The Sunnah, prophetic traditions. These are the traditions written down and memorized of his words, his deeds, and his actions. And again, they were memorized and written down, compiled, and passed on through the generations from time of the Prophet Muhammad until the time now. In Islamic schools, students are typically taught both the Quran, which we mentioned about, which is our sacred text, and the Sunnah, prophetic traditions, which is, in these two sources are the main sources of Islam. So special days. Muslims have fun and happy days, just like any other faith. Any guess of what special days we have? Okay. So these are some of the more popular days that you've seen about or heard about in your schools. So Jummah prayer or Friday prayer. Ramadan, as we mentioned, is a sacred month of fasting. Eid Fitter, the feast or celebration of the breaking of the fast. Eid al-Adha, the feast of the sacrifice. And greetings you. So again, you'll hear Ramadan Mubarak. Mubarak means blessed. So you have Ramadan Mubarak, Jummah Mubarak, Eid Mubarak. That's just a way you would say or greet somebody, a greetings during the holiday time. And Friday prayer, or Jummah prayer, they're held, it's a communal prayer. They're held on Friday during the noon prayer. So we have a noon prayer already on Fridays. So this prayer is performed at that time. It includes a sermon, but it's a shortened form of the ritual prayer. So it's not the full ritual prayer, but it has a sermon. Adult males and older boys are required to attend. Females and children are welcome, but not obligatory. So in the mosque, you'll normally see perhaps more men and boys than females. It's mainly females, they tend to have smaller kids. They might have babies that make a loud noise, but again, they're welcome to come. There's no prohibition. In Islamic school, they'll normally be incorporated in the schedule. Men and women will be in separate, designated, segregated areas, but they will both be allowed and encouraged to pray. A masjid or mosque is an Islamic place of worship. Ramadan, as we mentioned, is the 9th month of the Islamic calendar. The Quran was revealed during this month. It begins with the sighting of the moon and it ends with the sighting of the moon. So the images of the crescent moon and the moon itself are popular when you do the Islamic decor for that month. Again, during this time, there's no food, no drink, no water, nothing. Anytime there's daylight, you can't do any of that. However, Muslims, before they fast, after they fast, they have big fancy meals. They get together with friends and neighbors. There's a lot of partying going on, but not during the daytime. A lot of times you'll sponsor a community dinner or on behalf of charity. People give money to feed the poor people, provide dinners for people during this month. And throughout the month of Ramadan, people are focusing on spirituality, charity, reading more Quran, doing more extra prayers, especially the last 10 days and nights of Ramadan. There's a higher focus on really on refocusing, recalibrating one's life. This is a really great time that people take kind of restock of their lives and focus for the coming year. Eid al-Fitr is the holiday for the breaking the fast. So you have Ramadan, and then when it's over, you have the holiday of Eid al-Fitr. It also begins a new month. So Ramadan is a month. The new month begins with Eid. Schools and businesses will close in Muslim majority areas. People will pray. It'll be a large communal prayer. Normally, there'll be more Muslims available than the size of any mosques in the area. So they'll pray in a large, either open or covered area, maybe at a convention center, an arena, a football field. Any of that, you'll see Muslims come together. Now, for this holiday, there is something called Zakatul Fitter, which is a special donation which is given on the behalf of each person in your family. So my family, it's myself, 4 kids. I would give on behalf of 5 people the amount to feed a poor person. So last year, I think it was like $15. So I would give 5 times $15, $75 I need to give before this holiday so that a poor person, it would give the person money to them so they could eat on the holiday. Sorry. Again, it's a holiday time. People visit, they give gifts, they have fancy meals, party meals, a lot of fun stuff. Kids will have carnivals and things at your school might have a carnival. Eid al-Adha is the other big holiday. It's at the end. We talked about Hajj a little bit. So at the end of Hajj happens like the beginning of the month of Dhul Hijjah. So on day 10, it would be the start of Eid al-Adha, or the celebration of the sacrifice. It commemorates the test of Prophet Ibrahim when he was commanded by Allah to sacrifice his beloved son. And he had a firm intention he was going to go ahead and go forward with that, but then God stopped him. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala stopped him, and he was ordered instead to sacrifice an animal. So same way Muslims, we sacrifice an animal as a remembrance of that. The meat itself is distributed. It's not just you slaughter a goat or a sheep and you eat all of it. No, you're commanded to share. Family, friends, neighbors, and other needy individuals in the community. This action is actually required of all adult Muslims, again, if they have a minimum amount. So again, if you're homeless, you're on the street, you need yourself, you're not required to do this. It's required if you have the financial capability. Again, on this holiday, schools and businesses will close. Again, it will also be a communal prayer. Again, indoor or outside. The Muslims in the area will all gather together. There could be multiple celebrations. Just depends on how many Muslims live in the particular area. Okay, so the next thing, we're going to go into some other just general policies for Muslims. So there are dietary restrictions. Does anybody have a guess of something that they might have heard about or seen about in your school?
Pork.
You're right. So we can eat lots of pork and bacon, right? What do you?
No.
Yeah, thumbs down. Only turkey bacon. So yeah, no pepperoni on the pizza. Sorry. So yeah, number 1, no pork, no alcohol. But you might not realize that too, but so it's not just pork or alcohol, but the derivatives. So there's a lot of stuff, especially here in America and the West. They make things, pork is cheap, pigs are cheap. I have cousins that are pig farmers. It's super cheap. They eat anything. So a lot of the ingredients in these random products will contain pork. Really, I don't know why, but it is what it is. So you'll see Muslims kind of reading ingredients. When I go to the store, I have to read ingredients. My kids like, what are you doing? It's because, randomly they'll put something funky in. The dressing could have alcohol in it. Again, who knows why. Also, we cannot eat carnivorous animals. So if an animal eats other animals, it makes sense. Like, we also can't eat it. And animals must be slaughtered humanely in the name of Allah. Halal food means food permissible for Muslims. Halal itself is a bigger meaning, but if it's used kind of as an adjective for food, it means permissible food. Halal itself means anything kind of permissible. And so there's just a sample of food. Muslims love to eat, so you always have lots of good food. Gender relations. Any guess of what is or is not allowed in Islam between men and women? Nobody? All right. So there's no premarital sex. That's a big no-no. Men and women, if they're not related, it's to be maintain a respectful professional relationship, no physical interactions, no touching, no hugging. Also, there's very strict clothing requirement. So I have a scarf on now. I have, long sleeves, dress. In front of, if I go out in public, if I go to the store, go to school, that's what I wear. My kids are here, so when the Zoom's off, the scarf's going off, I put on my t-shirt. But, if I'm in a public space, there are requirements. First degree relatives, which again, your spouse, siblings, parents. Oh, I guess I forgot to put kids in. I must have been annoyed with them when I was typing this up, but kids also, parents, aunts, uncles, grandparents, first degree relatives. So you can touch, you can hug, you have looser clothing requirements. You still can't wear like nothing. There is still some minimum of clothing that you need to wear for modesty, and people often will choose to wear more than what is required. A lot of, it's just the world we live in, all of this is just, it's a preventative, And then in general, men and women, everybody has to be modest. It's not just women, it's not just men, everybody. This piece of fabric that goes over my hair, it's called a hijab. It's just a piece of fabric. That's what it is. The rest of the women, you cover your figure with loose, opaque garments. The color, the style, it's totally up to the lady. It's based on kind of cultural preferences, things that happen in your area. Certain attire that I wear here in America, it would look very strange in another country, and vice versa. So people, it's up to them what they want, how they want to interpret, but they just need to wear loose, opaque garments. And again, it's a preventative measure. You go out in the street, what people are wearing, you wear certain things, people look at you in a certain way. So wearing modest clothing is a preventative, it's a preventative measure. Additional sources of information. So there's lots of places online to look up stuff. I just would like to hazard that there's a lot of really bad websites and bad sources on the internet. So just be very careful and cautious. If you do have a scholar at your school, you might want to reach out to them what some suggested sites are. I just put just a couple here. I don't want to overwhelm anyone. Just be very careful when Googling. Even myself, I'm not a scholar, so I'm really very careful when I Google because I really don't know. I'm not an expert in any means. I just know basic stuff. So the Quran that I like the most it's a white Quran. It's English translation, the meaning of a Quran, the guidance for mankind. It happens to be, they translate it rather than word for word. It's the verse by verse, so you can read it easily in English. It's really good for people who don't know any Arabic. You just kind of want to know what it means. It's easy to read. Translations of Quran, they're in translations, so it's not going to be the same as the actual Quran, and depending what you want or what your reason for getting a particular book, you'll get a different one based on that. Here's a couple resources which I found. Islamicity is a really nice basic website, lots of good information, one of the larger and websites available. The Beginner's Guide to Understanding Islam. Oops, there you go, so that's that one. Has some nice basic information. Oops. I think I wasn't supposed to do that. Sorry. What Islam Says About is by Yaqeen Institute. They're really good Islamic research institute. This particular article is just very basics on Islam. The website itself has tons more information. And just a shout out to my colleague, Barbara Schaffner, Masters of Education. She's an Islamic scholar. So she reviewed this in terms of content and stuff because she's a scholar, I'm not a scholar. So she said I might hop on. She didn't hop on, but it's a shout out to her. So that was it. Do you have questions? I can do easy stuff. Hard stuff you can email, and myself or Dr. Shazza will forward it out, or perhaps she'll know the answer. So do you have questions, comments?
What is the difference between the two Eids?
So they're both holidays. So one is the month of Ramadan, is a whole month. So at the end of the month of Ramadan, we have a holiday, and that's Eid al-Fitr. Fitr means breaking of the fast. So it's the holiday of the breaking of the fast. The other holiday is Hajj. It's like a 5-day holiday. So the people that go to the Kaaba in Mecca, they perform the Hajj. Yay, alhamdulillah, like great, they can do the Hajj thing. Everybody else, they're at home, working and stuff. At the end of the Hajj days, so the month of Dhul Hijjah is the Hajj month. So the Hajj is like on days 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. On day 10 is the holiday. The people in Saudi Arabia, they finish the Hajj rites. They do their thing. They have certain things they have to do. Everybody, back home, we can now have a holiday. We sacrifice an animal, go pray together. So they're both holidays, both big holidays. It just happens to be the timing. So Eid means like holiday. So one is Eid for after Ramadan, one is Eid for after Hajj. That makes sense?
Yes, thank you.
Oh, sure. Took me a bit to remember like the names for each one. So.
And just to add to that, Lisa, with the Hajj, where the pilgrims are reenacting a lot of what Prophet Abraham and his family had engaged in, the sacrifices and the difficulty. And as Sister Lisa explained about Abraham's dream to sacrifice his son, we believe it was Ishmael, and then was rewarded by God, by Allah, for being so obedient, despite what must have been extremely difficult for him to oblige to do. And so Muslims also, as Lisa explained, engage in that sacrifice of slaughtering an animal and distributing that meat to the poor who would otherwise perhaps never be able to eat some meat. And that's the only time that they eat meat in the entire year, and to family and for yourself as well. So this actually signifies the celebration of the sacrifice, just as Eid al-Fitr is the celebration of the breaking of the fast.
So there's lots of stuff I didn't cover. So if you have something that you've seen at your school, or one of your colleagues have done that was kind of like weird, like what in the world are they doing? Please ask. It's much easier to ask. Believe me, I feel better when people ask me questions rather than they just assume I'm doing things. One day at work, I was working at a public school last year, and this is how I dress every day. So one of the persons asked me if I'm doing this because I have skin cancer. And I'm like, no, thank you for asking, but I'm doing this for religious reasons. So it's much better people ask, or if you don't want to ask now, ask a colleague or something, because it's much better to ask and get right information, or, and people normally have no problem answering. I enjoy answering myself, so.
You're also welcome to use the chat if you want to, and we won't state your name. I know that this is being recorded, so that might be another.
And you also feel free, there's a short survey at the end, and in the survey, if you have a question or something more detailed, just put it in there, and it's something easy again, I will answer back. Otherwise, I will reach out to Dr. Shazar or one of my colleagues to get an answer, but that's another way. Or you can also email info@theisla.org, and we'll do our best to get a prompt answer, inshallah. And inshallah just means God willing, so that's all it is.
I noticed my school they only pray Salah at 2:50 at 2 o'clock, but how come they don't do it at noon?
Well, so it's based on the time. So like if you look, say, at your newspaper, there's like the almanac, like when dawn begins, like when it starts the day and ends the day. So like me in California, where I am now, noontime is like 12:50, but you have from 12:50 to about 4 o'clock to pray the noon prayer. It's a long window. The days are long now. In the wintertime, when the days get shorter, in my area, it's from about 1 o'clock to about 2:30 is the noontime like slot. So these are like slots. So it doesn't mean like you pray at 12 noon. It means you pray at noontime, which is a time like the sun is like directly above you. And then the afternoon prayer, like my hand looks the wrong angle here, but afternoon is like when the sun's like at 45 degrees, and Maghrib or the dusk prayer is like when the sun goes down below the horizon. So for like the morning, the dawn prayer is like about an hour and a half slot. The dusk prayer is about an hour and a half slot. The evening prayer, like the sun goes down, you have all night to pray. And the same thing like the noontime, it's till the sun goes all the way up till it gets to the 45 degrees about. And then the other afternoon prayers again from 45 to like there's no more sun. So you have a pretty good chunk of time, especially in summertime. But like in terms of school schedule, like in my area, they just set it so that the kids always pray we did about 12:30, the school I was working in, because it could always be that time throughout the year. Like you could always pray the Dhuhr. We used to pray it at 4:30, but then it was just really hard with pickup and stuff. So then we made it so that kids had to pray it at home. Other parts of the country, again, your window of slot of time may adjust. So might pick a time that it can always pray. Maybe 2 o'clock in your time zone and stuff they can always pray the Dhuhr prayer, the noon prayer. It's just much easier if you can keep the school schedule the same year long, rather than having one schedule for the summer days and one schedule the winter days. But again, some places the time of the day is too big a difference, and they have to change it. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, thank you.
Question. And again, also at your school, you might have different groups praying at different times, just because of logistics and stuff. Again, the school I was most recently at, like they didn't have enough place for all the kids to pray. So we had like 5 different staggered noon prayers. Again, that was just because of the space. They couldn't all pray at the same time with their schedule. So they adjusted it was a staggered schedule. Other places, they have a bigger facility, a nice big auditorium. They'll have everybody pray at the same time. So it kind of just depends on your school, your facility. It's not so much that the prayer, but there's other considerations in terms of an Islamic school. So the main thing is you pray within the slot. What time within the slot is better to be at the beginning, but it's better obviously to pray than not pray. So they'll kind of work out, when it's best for the school. And Regina, nice to see your face now.
Any other questions? I see some new folks have joined. Inshallah, we'll be sending you the recording of this presentation and resources. At this point, we're at the end of the presentation, but we still have time to answer any questions that you might have. You're welcome to put it in the chat or unmute and ask a question. Maybe you joined specifically to find something out and we didn't talk about it yet.
There's a lot of stuff. This was just a highlight. So again, there's something at your school they might do, and you're just wondering what are they doing. Feel free.
I guess this is just kind of a broad question, but would there be regional differences? Like, because I do have a pretty diverse set of students from different regions in the world. So,
So yeah, so the religion is the same, but the way people practice it can differ. Like just example, my scarf. This just happens to be a fabric that I like. It's cheap and easy for me. If I was in a different part of the world, or if I had a friend from a different background, like she's coming from a different part of the world, she would have to use a different fabric. She might even do her scarf. Like you see Dr. Shahada, she did it differently than me, right? I'm just like basic. But so again, Islam is a very broad path. We accommodate quite a bit. It's okay to be different, and that allows for quite a wide range of differences, not in the religion, but in the practice of it. So exactly how a scarf looks, different types of food. There also are some differences in, I'm not gonna say belief, but how you practice it. There's quite a lot of differences that are tolerated and allowed. So yeah, you'll see, depending on what you're talking about, but there would, differences in the look of the dress, foods that people eat. And Muslims, it's a large group of people, so even on some things there's difference of opinion. Different scholars have different viewpoints, and depending on which scholar or school, there's actually different legal beliefs, and if you follow this particular kind of judge or scholar, it might be different than another one. It's allowable. It's not fundamentally different, but there are differences. Does that work? Or
yeah, that was very helpful. Thank you.
oh, sure. I mean, I didn't talk at all about, but there's also, this is like Sunni and Shia. So Shia is the minority. It's about 15% of worldwide Muslims are Shia. They will have more major differences, but they're still Muslims. And there'll be a number of smaller sects, just like you have, say, in Christianity, you have Protestants, Catholics, and you have a bunch of other smaller sects. So in Islam, it's not as many different groups. So you have Sunni, which are majority of all Muslims. And you have Shia, like the number 2 in number. But you have a number of smaller groups, depending, again, on what region of the world you are. There's a number of very small groups that have, few million, few 100,000 believers. But in America, a lot of people immigrate. So we have in terms of these smaller groups, there'll be, a number of small groups with a few people, believers, in the American Canada. And they will have more differences in the actual beliefs. But most of the people at your schools are either, Sunni or Shia. Anything else? People have a question or something strange at school? Just want to see what's up with that. Believe me, I've asked so many questions over the years, and people just like, what's up with Sister Lisa? So I've offended, pretty much people from every single background, language. I'm a pro at how to offend people in every single culture, language. I've done it, so not to worry. It's the benefit of working with, wide range of people. You can offend pretty much everybody. My policy is just I don't do it the same silly question twice. I'll do it one time, and then I'll ask a related silly question the next time.
And Sister Lisa, I wanted to ask if you don't mind putting your email address in the chat, so that if anybody does think of something later on, maybe throughout the school year. And I know, Sister Lisa, you've humbly stated that you're not a scholar, but sometimes all it is that we need a practicing Muslim who is not going to be easily offended, and to ask.
Yeah, please feel free. And you can, take my email me anytime. No worries. And really, I've asked so many stupid questions over the years. If you can believe it, when the first people I met, when I was in college, I grew up here in Southern California. I had no Muslim friends or anything in college. One of the classes I took was on, actually not even the class. One of the ladies in my program, architecture program, she was Muslim. I had never met practicing. I had never really Muslim before. So she wore a scarf. I mean, again, I'm an ignorant American. I know nothing about Islam. So I walk up to her. She was very nice. She was a really nice lady, Hanan. May God be merciful to her. And I'm like, why do you wear this? What do you? And then I'm like, what do you have on underneath it? Again, was a very ignorant person. And she was just so nice. She took off her scarf to show me that she's got hair underneath it. Because we don't shave our hair. We wear hair and we put a scarf underneath it. And she was just really, may Allah be merciful to her. I asked her so many really bad questions. So, feel free. I owe it to her, to everybody else. I'd rather you ask me. I don't, if I can speak, I'm okay. But I have no problem, anything you want is not going to be stupid to me. So feel free. And here, you want my phone number? You can text me too. It doesn't. 2328282.
Thank you so much, Sister Lisa. You've been so generous with your time and so encouraging. I'm sure that inshallah, as we also share out this recording, that people will follow through on that generous invitation. At this time, Sister Lisa, I will invite you to close the presentation. And I want to thank all of our guests for joining us. And Sister Lisa, I want to thank you for such an awesome presentation and just for being that person that people can turn to ask questions and be the best teacher that they can be. We know that relationships are perhaps, and research has shown, the rapport between students and teachers is the #1 factor that impacts their learning and engagement in the classroom. So by you all joining us today, you and those who will be joining and listening to the recording later on, you have really demonstrated that huge effort to build the foundation of success for your students and your classroom. So thank you so much for that. And Sister Lisa, again, thank you for this very interesting and informative conversation.
Well, thank you guys, everybody. Thank you, ISLA, for having me, and thank all of you for coming. Again, feel free to reach out or call if you do have any questions about Islam. I'm not a scholar, but happy to answer. I really specialize in the stupid questions, so those are good for me.
Thank you, Sister Lisa. Take care, everybody. We hope you have a great evening.
So thank you, sisters. Assalamu alaikum.
Bye.
Thank you. Thank